Okay, so last week I showed a model that I've been working on for this project, and this week I wanted to talk a bit more, just progressing that model, looking at some of the ideas that were generated there, most notably with these outward-facing sliding doors, and how that might work. So I've gone away and I've done some drawing and looking at what that could look like in section, and then in a kind of basic elevation for now. But just to recap, last week the model depicted the proposal, and through making the model, I started to come up with this idea of having these completely outward facing sliding doors that during the hot daytime allow the building to be as open as possible towards nature, the outside, and have a real kind of strong inside-outside living condition, and really increased ventilation as well within the proposal. And what I've done here is I'm just reusing the section I showed a couple of weeks ago, and I'm just progressing it now on this side where this floor to wall threshold is, and a little bit of the ceiling. So if we just remember what we were talking about there, a lot of that was about the roof construction, where I was looking at how you could construct the roof using like woven pine leaves and a series of bamboo purlins to sit over a wood frame that rests on sleepers, which share a relationship with the existing wall here, which is of stone. But in this case, this is where the potential of having these open facing sliding doors would be. I was thinking about how that might work, because in the model here, you can, we'll just take these off because they're not making my life any easier. Take these little bamboo sticks off. Cool. In the model, the sliding doors show these two compartments open, but when you get to this part here, there's a kind of junction of doors that effectively sit on top of each other, and the purpose of these drawings is to understand how that could actually go together. But in this case, I've kept the notion of having an inside-outside ability of the building, but rather than having a sliding element, I'm thinking about how you could have this series of wooden planks that you could manually pick up and slot in and disperse of at a point around the building. So it's a really ad hoc way of living, but rather than the sliding mechanism. So in this case, if we start from the bottom up, we've got this here. This would be your wood. This would be your primary wooden column here, structural column, which forms the series of columns that run along the facade on the model. And what they would do is they would extend down into the ground. So they would effectively be your foundation pillars, and then you can weave them together. And then that would be supporting a lintel, which I briefly mentioned back a couple of weeks ago on this section drawing here, which I appreciate is a little bit faded because I've just overlaid paper. And what that does is the lintel runs across the top of the door opening or window opening, and gives a lot of structural support to the roof, and then that in turn supports a series of woven together bamboo columns, which in the section you can't see, and also in the model you can't see. And actually, have I drawn that wrong? No, I haven't drawn it wrong. And what they wouldn't be running the entire length; they would be in chunks, and that links back to what we were talking about here, when the main purpose of that original section here was to understand how ventilation might work. So it was about creating a high-rise opening within the wall to allow hot air that gathers in this main living space here. It can escape out on either end. And of course, if we're creating large openings on this side, that reduces the pressure to have the openings up here, but they're still going to be there. And then the roof frame supports the gutter. I haven't drawn in the palm leaves for the case of this section, but with the actual openings, as I just briefly mentioned, with the idea of them being sliding, I thought about that, and actually I think it might be quite a cool idea to have these planks of wood, which you could effectively, when you want to take them out, you remove them manually. So they might have a handle on, which hasn't been illustrated here, and you could pick them up. And in this case, what you would do is in the lintel, I wondered if you could carve in an opening so that if your figure is here and they're going to take out this piece of wood and they want to remove it and create that opening into the building, what they do is they push up on this, let's call this like a doorstop of some sort, which is in the elevation. That's this part here. So you could pull this down, or you could bring it up again, and it would effectively hide inside the lintel, and that releases the panel from the top. And then all you do is you just lift it up and you remove it from these chamfered doorstops, and you can imagine them being like like in bookshelves where you basically put a heavy object on either end of a stack of books, and it stops them from toppling in either direction. This kind of works in the same way. So projecting out at I believe 15 millimeters, the floorboards, the woven floor mats, which sit on a wood floor, which is raised by the sleepers, which are just like the lintels in this case, or serve a similar purpose at least. These lintels raise the roof, these lintels raise the floor here, sleepers I should say. And yeah, then on top of that you've got your chamfered door stops. So when you want to put the door back in, what you would do is you would effectively loop it back into this little crevice here where it's supported at the bottom, and then you would then pull down your top door stop to stop the door from effectively falling like in that direction down. I did think about this idea of a drawbridge type mechanism, where maybe, again, rather than the sliding element, creating a kind of pile of doors on one end, you could just have a mechanism that draws the door down in this way, and then it kind of continues that concept of the ramp, which is featured around the front of the proposal in this end here. And then I also did think about how you could potentially, rather than having a big pile of doors gather on one end, overlapping each other, what if they could jut out just like the front door does? But this works because you've got only the single door to think about. So it's just a single door that comes out, you put your stop on, if that's open for the day. Whereas in this case, it's a little bit more crowded. And I thought having a really kind of ad hoc way of doing it kind of works within the general nature of this proposal. And yeah, in this elevation, I've drawn it shut and then I've drawn it open. So you can see when it's open, there's nothing there, because you would put the door or more so just this kind of light plank of wood elsewhere. You could literally stack it behind the building or whatever. You could reuse it in other parts. So it's not formal. It's not like a formal swinging door or sliding or whatever. It's literally just a kind of barricade element. So when that's off, you're completely free to just step out onto the ground, into the garden, the nature, whatever. And then your doorstop at the top is hiding in the lintel, but when it's closed, it has this appearance here. So you can see that these would be the two door stops, but you don't see it on this side because it is supporting the door on the other side, and you see it on this side because it would be exposed, and that is this chamfered piece here which might not be chamfered. I've just drawn it like this at this point in time. But yeah, that's where I am at the moment. Appreciate it was just a small addition to the proposal, but thank you for listening, and I will progress this work and I will come back with another update in due course.